Did the committee get it right?
They did not. To me, and I think to a lot of reasonable people, Georgia was one of the best teams in the country. I think they showed that Saturday in Atlanta. They had a 2-touchdown lead against a team that was unbeatable, had not even had a 3-touchdown game all year. But the committee did what the committee always does. They looked for a route to avoid major controversy. I say that because if Georgia had gotten in, it would be woefully unpopular outside of the South. There would have been a hue and cry about expanding, about breaking up this perfect world that we currently live in, or they currently live in. So instead of looking at the best teams, they chose the path of least resistance, and they put Oklahoma in, which played a nondescript conference championship game, as most did, other than Alabama and Georgia.
Paul Finebaum, what are you doing to me? We're buddies. You can't do this on national television. We're boys. We're teammates. You know, come on, man. We're together. You can't do this. I can't support Georgia being up in there. 2 losses, a blowout loss to LSU. Hey. You haven't even won your conference with 2 losses, and you still get to the postseason. I thought you were going to say, no, they got it wrong, which I agreed with, because Ohio State should have been in there with their 1 loss, considering how they romped over Michigan. But Georgia with 2 losses, no division crown, no conference crown, and on top of it all, they blew a 14-point lead. Come on, Paul.
Stephen A., get your blood pressure down, my friend. Here's the deal. What would have happened if Georgia had played Northwestern on Saturday, or if Georgia had played Pittsburgh, or Georgia had played Texas? Georgia would have beaten all those teams. That's my point. It's not a fair analysis to say, hey, they have 2 losses, and all of a sudden that LSU loss, which, by the way, did not seem to bother this committee last week when they put Georgia as the number 4 team in the country over Oklahoma and Ohio State. So all of a sudden, Oklahoma beats Texas, which lost to Maryland in the first week of the season, and we're going to penalize Georgia for going up against the mighty Crimson Tide and playing an epic game?
Paul, are you talking about the same Maryland team that dropped the pass in the end zone, or else they beat the same Ohio State team you're talking about? Like, we could do that forever. Yeah, my point is this. You're right. Theoretically, did Georgia, if you put me on a lie detector test, do I think they probably deserve to be in based on? Yes, but that's not the issue here, in fact. If they wanted to go, they could have won that game. The field goal kicker hits the field goal at the point where it really would have put the game out of reach, it seemed to me. He misses the field goal. That opens up the floodgates. There's a curious play call. All those things conspired to give them their second loss. Now, the fact that they lose that game and they get the brakes beaten off of them earlier in the season by LSU, that's Georgia. You look at Oklahoma, it was a field goal loss in a rivalry game that they avenged by a lot. At a certain point, coulda, shoulda, woulda. How do you keep Oklahoma out?
Well, listen, we're all splitting hairs here, Max, and my argument is flawed on surface, saying Georgia's best piece of work happens to be a loss against Alabama. But at some point you have to measure what are you worth. And this is where it comes down to it. I believe this should be the 4 best teams in the country. I don't care how the route is. I don't care what the path is. And the committee just did not want to set a precedent by putting a 2-loss team in without a conference championship. They were opening the door for expansion. They were giving people like Jim Delaney the opportunity to say, hey, we need to expand this. They don't want to expand it. Why they don't want to expand it, I don't know. But that's my main point here. You've all made good points. I'm just saying, if I know you guys well. We're friends. You would agree that Georgia is one of the 4 best teams in the country.
I feel that way.
Yeah, I would.
I feel that way.
And Vegas is supporting it by saying Georgia would be a 3-point or 4-point favorite over everyone in this field but Alabama.
Paul,
except Clemson, by the way.
Well, how about this question, Paul? Work with me here. What could have happened in your mind, whether it's Oklahoma or Ohio State, what could have happened to have convinced you that Georgia deserved to be out and they deserve to be in, outside of going undefeated? What could have happened?
Yeah, I think if Georgia had lost by a considerable margin, I wonder, though, what about this scenario? What if Kirby Smart had not made the bonehead decision of the year and fake a punt on 4th and 11, and this game had gone to overtime? Would that have changed your opinion at all? Or is it 7-point margin? Okay. Listen, and I can't say you're both like totally wrong. I think this also may be indicating if we had a 6-team playoff this year, not an 8-team, but a 6-team, where you pick the best 6 team, we would have. Imagine Notre Dame playing Ohio State and Oklahoma and Georgia playing in 2 weeks versus some of the nonsensical bowl games that we have.
I just think that part of it, Paul, you're right. Who do I think Georgia's one of the 4 best teams after what they almost did to Alabama? I do. Yeah. But part of it is, look, how do you prove that they're one of the 4 best, right? Like, would you rather do it more subjectively, which opens us up to more argument, et cetera, or would you actually rather say that's a 2-loss team? Sorry, it's basically a double elimination tournament.
Okay, but it's not, though. And what we have are committee members who painstakingly go through all the games, and it comes down to the last weekend. I mean, everything is being determined by what happens Saturday, the Heisman and the 14 playoff. Listen, we have a flawed system. It's better than the old system, although if we had the old system, it would be Alabama and Clemson, and quite frankly, that's right.
I like the flawed system.
For what it's worth,
exciting.
Paul, I wanted the Alabama-Georgia rematch. I want to see that one again. Georgia would knock them off.
I mean,
you Riley take a shot.
No.
I mean, last year the game went to overtime. I mean, you could argue, and I think I could get some support here, that these are the 2 best teams in the country. Because Clemson, I don't know what they've done this year. Their best win of the year was at Texas A&M on a missed 2-point conversion. Alabama beat Texas A&M by 3 touchdowns.